Hey everyone, welcome to My Summer Car. My name is Victor. Today I'm going to show you guys how to build your first Satsuma in My Summer Car. But before you do that, here are some things that you need to get from Timo Shop. Also, I'll be putting up bolt sizes right above my webcam right here. Now with that out of the way, let's start the build guide. So first things first, we're just gonna go into the garage and turn on the lights right here. By the way, there are chapters down below so that you can skip to certain parts of the video. Also, after each chapter, I'll be saving the game. But anyways, let's move on to chapter 1, which is the engine. So we're just gonna go over right here and we're just gonna pick up the engine block, which is right here. So we're just gonna use the scroll wheel on our mouse to turn it over just like that. And now the first things first, we're just gonna find, which is the crankshaft right here. So we're just gonna grab crankshaft from that shelf over there. We're just gonna pop it right here. There should be a check mark right there. So we're just gonna left click on our mouse to insert it into place. So now we're just gonna grab the bearings, which is right here, the main bearings. So this is bearing 3. There are 3 bearings, by the way, so I'm just gonna pop it right here. Alright, there we go. Alright, so now we're just gonna grab our spanner set from the table right up there. And to open it, we're just going to press F on our keyboard. And now press the number 2 on your main keyboard to switch to hand tool mode. Alright, so now we're just going to grab the 9mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. So we're just going to scroll up on our mouse to tighten down each bolt. Alright, so now we're just going to swap back to hand mode by pressing 1 on our main keyboard, just like that. And now we're just going to grab the pistons, which is right here. So we're just going to grab piston 1, and we're just going to rotate the block upright, so just like that. And just going to grab piston 1, and it goes right here. And now we're just going to grab piston 2, it goes right here. Piston 3, and finally piston 4. And now we're just gonna grab the block again. We're just gonna turn it around, and now we're just gonna grab our spanner, which is a 7mm spanner. So we're just gonna swap back to hand tool mode, which is number 2 on our keyboard, and we're just gonna grab the 7mm spanner, and now we're just gonna tighten down each bolt right here. Alright, so now we're just gonna swap back to hand mode, and we're just gonna grab the oil pan, which is right here, and it goes right here. So now we're just gonna grab the spanners again. So first things first, we're just gonna tighten down this big one right here. So we just grab the 13mm right here, tighten that down, and now we're just gonna grab back our 7mm spanner, and we're just gonna tighten down these bolts right here. So now we're just going to swap back to hand mode, which is number 1 on our keyboard. And now we're just going to grab the camshaft right here. And we're just going to rotate our block again. And now we're just going to grab the crankshaft, and it goes right here, right there. And now we're just going to grab our 5mm spanner from the spanner set. And now we're just going to tighten down those 2 bolts right there. One over here, and one over here. Next, let's build the clutch assembly. So we're just going to go over here and make sure you are in hand mode right here. So now we're just going to grab the clutch pressure plate and insert it into the cover plate right here. And now we're just going to grab the clutch disc and stack it inside just like that. Next, we're going to grab the engine plate right here, and we're just going to attach it to the back of the engine right here, just like that. Next, we're going to grab the flywheel. So we're just going to grab the flywheel right here, and it goes right here. Now I'm just gonna turn the block upright just like that, and now we're just gonna grab a 7mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Now we're just gonna grab the clutch assembly and we're just gonna pop it in right here. Now grab a 6mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Now we're just gonna grab the gearbox, which is right here. Just gonna swap back to hand mode, and the gearbox goes right here. Next we're gonna grab the inspection cover, and the inspection cover goes right here. And now we're just gonna grab a 7mm spanner, and now we're just gonna tighten down those bolts. Now we're just gonna grab a 10mm spanner to tighten down that one bolt right there. Next we're gonna install the cylinder head, which is right here. So I'm just gonna rotate the block one more time. But before that we need to install the head gasket, which is right over here. So the head gasket goes on first before the cylinder head. There we go. And now we're just gonna grab the cylinder head and it goes on top just like that. And now we're just gonna grab a 7mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Next we're gonna grab the rockers, which is right here. And the rockers goes right here. Now grab a 8mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Now once the rockers has been installed, let's grab our screwdriver right here, and now we're just gonna scroll down on our mouse until it doesn't move, just like that. And now we're just gonna scroll upwards 7 clicks. There we go. So now we're just gonna do it for the rest of them. Next, we're gonna grab the rocker cover. And now we're just gonna grab a 7mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Next, I'm gonna install the exhaust and the carburetor. So the exhaust is right here, the headers, and it goes right here. And now we're just gonna grab the carburetor, which is right here. And we're just gonna put it just like that. Now we're gonna grab an 8mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Next, let's install the camshaft gear. Camshaft gear goes right here. And now we're just gonna grab a 10mm spanner to tighten down that bolt. Alright, so now I'm just gonna tune it. So we're just gonna swap back to hand mode, and I'm just gonna lay the block like that, upright. So you see this thing right here, the needle. So this thing needs to match right here. So we're just gonna grab our 10mm spanner that we have just now. So I'm just gonna rotate it. And now we're just gonna match it up right there. So I'm just gonna slowly click it and it's aligned. So make sure this thing right here on the gear and the notch over here at the block, make sure it matches. Now let's grab the timing chain. Next, let's install the timing cover. And now we're just gonna grab a 6mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Next, let's grab the water pump. And we'll need a 7mm spanner to tighten down those bolts. Next, we're gonna install the crankshaft pulley. And to tighten it down, we'll need an 11mm spanner. Next, let's grab the water pump pulley. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 7mm spanner. Next, let's install the alternator. And we'll need a 7mm spanner and a 10mm spanner to tighten down those two bolts. Now we're going to grab a 10mm. And the other bolt, it's right here. Next, let's grab the alternator belt. Next, we're gonna tune the alternator, and now we're just gonna scroll down on our mouse all the way until the alternator is not moving anymore. And now we're just gonna scroll upwards 2 clicks. And now grab your screwdriver and tighten down the single screw. Next, let's install the air filter. The air filter goes right here, and to tighten down those bolts, we'll need a 6mm spanner. Next, let's install the starter motor. The starter goes right here, and to tighten it down, we'll need a 7mm spanner. And we're just going to tighten down that single screw for now, as this one will need it for wiring later on. Next, let's install the drive gear. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 6mm spanner. Next, let's install the fuel pump. To tighten it down, we'll need a 7mm spanner. Next, let's install the oil filter. And to tighten it down, we just need to scroll up on our mouse. Next, let's install the spark plugs. Now we're just going to grab the spark plugs and put it right here. To To tighten it down, we'll need to use this special tool right here. So now that the player thirst is all the way up to the red, let's go and grab something to drink for the player. And now maybe something to eat as well. Next, let's install the distributor. Alright, so now we're just going to tune the distributor. So I'm just going to scroll down all the way on my mouse until it doesn't move. Or until it reaches to that point right over there. Alright, so it stopped moving. So now I'm just going to scroll upwards 27 clicks. Now once you scroll up 27 clicks on your mouse, now we're just going to grab the screwdriver and we're just going to tighten down this single screw right here. And just like that, chapter 1 is over and our engine is built. Now for chapter 2, I'll see you guys in the morning. So it's the next day right now, so we're just going to move on to chapter 2, which is the engine bay. Alright, first things first, we're going to grab the subframe and put it inside the Satsuma. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 10mm spanner. Next, let's install the steering rack. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 9mm spanner. Next, we're going to install the brake and clutch master cylinders. And to tighten it down, we'll need an 8mm spanner. Next, we're going to install the brake and clutch lines. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 7mm spanner. Next, we're going to tighten down the linings that goes to the wheels. Next, we're going to install the electrics. And to tighten it down, we'll need an 8mm spanner. Next, we're going to install the fuel strainer. And to tighten it down, we'll need an 8mm spanner. Next, we're going to install the radiator. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 70mm spanner. Next, we're going to install the engine. For the engine, we're just going to grab it by the block. And we're just going to rotate it like this. Make sure the air filter is facing towards the back. And we're just going to set it inside the Satsuma. Now we just want to position the Satsuma just like that. And now you see there's bolts right here. So now we're just going to grab the 11mm spanner to tighten down 3 bolts inside the engine bay. So that's our 11mm. We're just going to go over here by pressing Q to pick it over. And now there's one over here. As you can hear, the engine snaps into place. So we're just going to keep tightening it down. And there's one more right behind here, nearby the gearbox. And now our engine is installed. Next, we're going to connect up all the radiator hoses. Now before we can connect other hoses, we first need to tighten down the ones that we have. So to tighten it down, we're just going to use a screwdriver. And now we can install the rest of the hoses. Next, let's install the battery. We'll tighten down the battery in a later part of the video when we get to the Satsuma wiring. And now chapter 2 has been completed. Now let's move on to chapter 3, which is the suspension. And for the time being, I'm just going to lower down some of the stats that the player currently has. Now with the stats lowered, let's move on to chapter 3, which is the suspension. So we're just going to grab the front wishbone and install that first. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 10mm spanner. Next, let's install the spindle. To tighten it down, we'll need a 12mm spanner. Next, let's install the front struts. To tighten it down, we'll need two spanner sets. One is a 10mm spanner and the other is a 9mm spanner. So let's just tighten up the top first by using a 10mm spanner. Now let's grab the 9mm spanner and tighten down on the lower half. Next, let's install the disc brakes. Next, let's install the steering rod. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 12mm spanner. Next, let's move on to the half shaft. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 9mm spanner and a 14mm spanner. Now let's move on to rear suspension. So we're just going to grab the trail arm right here. And we're just going to install it right here. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 12mm spanner. Next, let's install the coil springs. Next, let's install the shock absorber. To tighten it down, we'll need a 6mm spanner and a 12mm spanner. Next, let's install the drum brakes. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 14mm spanner. And with that, chapter 3 has been completed. Now let's move on to chapter 4, which is the interior. But for now, I'll be saving the game and continuing it the next day. So it's the next day, now let's move on to the interiors. And first up, we have the steering column to install. So let's go get that. And to tighten it down, we'll need an 8mm spanner. Next, let's install the dashboard. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 10mm spanner. Next, let's install the clock into the dashboard meters. And to tighten it down, we need a 70mm spanner. Next, let's install the radio. Now let's take the dashboard meters and install it into the dashboard. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 6mm spanner. Next, let's install the steering wheel. And to tighten it down, we'll need a 10mm spanner. Next, let's install the gear stick. And to tighten it down, we need a 6mm spanner. Next, let's install the handbrake. And to tighten it down, we need an 8mm spanner. Next, let's install the back panel. Next, let's install the back seats. And to tighten it down, we need a 9mm spanner. Next, let's install the passenger seat. And to tighten it down, we need a 9mm spanner again. Next, let's install the driver's seat. To tighten it down, we need a 9mm spanner. Next, let's install the wheels and roll the Satsuma into the garage. Now, before we install the wheels, in the recent Monstercat update, some of the tires will be on 1% conditions, so we need to measure it before we install it. So now grab the ruler that is inside the toolkit and now measure it on the tire. As you can see, it's 1%, 63, 1%, and 64%. So for the 1% tires, I'll be putting it on the back of the Satsuma, while the higher percentage goes on the front. So let's do that right now. And to tighten it down, we need a 13mm spanner. Now with the tires installed, we're just gonna push the Satsuma into the garage. So we're just gonna press J on our keyboard to start pushing. Now with the interior installed and the Satsuma in the garage, that's the end of chapter 4, which is the interior. Now let's move on to chapter 5, which is the exterior body panels and lights. To tighten down the fenders, we'll need a 5mm spanner. Also, I'll be removing the battery for now as it keeps falling out. Next, let's install the headlights. So we need to remove the light from the box first by pressing F on our keyboard. Now grab the headlights and rotate it towards the backside, like this. Now grab the bulb and insert it once you see the check mark by left clicking on your mouse. And now we're just going to do the same for that one as well. Now we're going to install it into the Satsuma. And to tighten it down, we need a 70mm spanner. Next, let's install the tail lights. Next, let's install the grille. And to tighten it down, we need a 6mm spanner. Next, let's install the front bumpers. And to tighten it down, we need an 8mm spanner. Next, let's install the rear bumpers. And to tighten it down, we need an 8mm spanner again. Next, let's install the boot lid. To tighten it down, we need a 6mm spanner. Now, to tighten out the boot lid, we first need to open it. So left click on your mouse and hold it. Just like that. Now the bolts are exposed. Next, let's install the doors. To tighten down the doors, we need a 10mm spanner. Now we need to open the door to expose the bolts. Now with the exterior completed, let's move on to chapter 6, which is the underside of the Satsuma. So let's do that right now, but first we need to tighten down the handbrake as it keeps falling off. So grab a 5mm spanner and go underneath the Satsuma. And tighten down this single bolt. Next, let's install the exhaust pipe. And to tighten it down, we need a 70mm spanner. Next, let's install the exhaust muffler. And to tighten it down, we need a 70mm spanner again. Next, let's install the fuel tank. And to tighten it down, we need a 11mm spanner. Next, let's grab a 12mm spanner to tighten out the single bolt. Next, let's install the fuel tank pipe. Next, let's install the gear linkage. And to tighten it down, we need a 5mm spanner. And with that, chapter 6 comes to a close. Now let's move on to chapter 7, which is the wiring. So I'll see you guys in the morning. So it's the next day. Now let's move on to the wiring. So we're just going to grab our wiring mess and we're just going to go over to the Satsuma. So now, we have to do this in one go, or else the wiring, we have to do it all over again. First, we're going to wire up the headlights. But before that, we need to remove the headlights and the grille in order to do that. Now with the headlights and grille out, let's start wiring. So we're just going to start with the left headlight first. Once you see a check mark right here, press F on your keyboard. Now we're just going to bring the same wire all the way over here to the front lights connector, press F on your keyboard, and now the left side has been wired. So now we're just going to go back to here, to the right side, and press F again to wire up the right side. Now with the same connector, go over to the front headlights connection right here, press F on your keyboard, and bring this over right here to the main harness connector. Press F on your keyboard, and now the headlights has been wired. Now with the same connection, press F on your keyboard on the main harness connector again, and bring it over to the radiator fan right here. As you can see, radiator fan connector, press F on your keyboard to wire up the radiator fan. Next, let's wire up the alternator. So we're just going to go over to the alternator right here. As you can see, alternator, press F on your keyboard, and now we're just going to bring this all the way to the regulator, which is right here. So we're just going to press F on our keyboard to wire it up. And now we're just going to wire up the regulator to the main harness connector. So we're just going to go over to the regulator again. And now we're just going to bring it over to the main harness connector. As you can hear, it wired up. Next, let's wire up the ignition coil. So the ignition coil is right over here. We're just going to press F on our keyboard from the main harness connector. If you have it connected, we're just going to connect it right here. Next, let's install back the battery. Now let's wire up the battery. So we're just going to grab our wiring mesh right here. And we're just going to go over to the negative terminal. Press F on your keyboard, and now bring it over to the ground battery connector right here. As you can hear, it's been wired up. And now go over to the starter motor. Once you see starter, press F and bring this over to the positive terminal right here. And now with the same wire, bring it over to the main harness connector right here. And now the battery has been wired up. Next, let's tighten out the bolts that is on the starter motor. So we'll need a 5mm spanner and a 7mm spanner. Next, let's put back the headlights and the grille. Now with that sorted, let's move on to the interior wiring. First, we're gonna wire up the ignition to the fuse box. Next, we're gonna wire up the radio to the radio harness. Next, we're gonna wire up instrument panel 2 to the fuse box. Next, we're gonna wire up instrument panel 1 to the fuse box. Next, we're gonna wire up the light switch to the main dash harness connector. Now with the interior wire up, let's move on to the rear of the Satsuma. First, we're gonna wire up the rear tail lights, so we're just gonna go over right here, press F on our keyboard, and bring it over to this connector right here. And now with the same connection, we're just gonna bring it over to the right side right over here, press F, and now that's wired up. Next, we're gonna wire up the fuel pump. So we're just gonna grab our wiring mesh, go over to the rear harness connector, and now just go over right here, fuel tank, press F on the keyboard to wire it up. Now with the Satsuma all wired up, now let's connect the battery. So we'll need an 8mm spanner to tighten down those two bolts. So we're gonna start with the positive side first, and then now the negative side. And with the battery bolted, Chapter 7 comes to an end. Now let's move on to Chapter 8, which is the fluids. So first up, we're gonna put in the engine oil. But first, we need to open the cap. Next, grab the engine oil. Now close the cap. Next, we're gonna put in the radiator fluids. And now we're just gonna close the cap again. Next, we're gonna put in the clutch and brake fluids. So I'm just gonna open up all three of this. And now we have to grab these bottles right here. And now we're just gonna close the caps. Now we're going to move on to the last fluid, which is the gasoline. So we're just going to open the cap right here. And to open the jerry can, press F on your keyboard, just like that. Now we're just going to grab it and put it into the car. Now that all the fluids are in the Satsuma, let's move on to chapter 9, which is the troubleshooting and miscellaneous stuff. So first things first, we're going to tune the carburetor. So we're going to grab our screwdriver. So now you're going to scroll up on your mouse 50 clicks. So that's 50 clicks. Now let's scroll down 23 clicks. And just like that, the carburetor has been tuned. Next, let's tune the wheels. So we're going to grab a 14mm spanner. And now we're just going to peek into here by pressing Q. And now scroll upwards on your mouse until it doesn't move. And then scroll downwards 60 clicks. Okay, it stopped moving. Now we're just going to scroll downwards 60 clicks. Next, let's put on the mud flaps. Now we're going to put on the hubcaps. Now the last thing to install is the hood. Now we're going to pop the hood in order to tighten down the bolts. To tighten it down, we need a 6mm spanner. And with that, chapter 9 has come to a close. Now let's move on to chapter 10, which is the startup and other troubleshooting. So the first thing that you're going to do is to pull out the choke and insert the key. And now we're just going to start cranking. As you can hear, there are ticking noises, so we'll have to troubleshoot that later on. As you can see, the Satsuma lifts. However, we still have the ticking noise to address. So we're just going to turn off the Satsuma for now, and we're just going to leave the choke out. So it seems that I have mistuned the rockers, so we're just going to address it right now. And now we're just going to grab the screwdriver to tune it again. So all I'm doing is scrolling up all the way until it doesn't move, and then scrolling downwards 7 clicks. And now I'm just gonna bolt back on the rocker cover. And now I'm just gonna start up the Satsuma. As you can see, it lives but without the ticking sound anymore. So now I'm just gonna warm up the Satsuma and I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, now that the Satsuma is warm, let's check some of the features of the Satsuma. So we're just gonna check out the lights. As you can see, it works. Now we're gonna check out the wipers. Okay, the wipers are working. Okay, now let's take it for a quick test drive. As you can see, the tires on the 1% on the back did not pop yet. So this is the setup that you should do for 2025. Now as you can see, we're going to accelerate. The higher percentage tires are the ones that's gripping on the front, so it doesn't pop. Anyways, let's check the driving. Let's turn on the lights. And let's turn on the wipers. So yeah, everything works on the Satsuma. So now I've brought the Satsuma to the highway, and now let's just do a little bit of testing. As you can see, the Satsuma works just as well. Anyways, that's all for this tutorial guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, toss a like and get subscribed to the channel for more future videos just like this one. And if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section down below. And with that all being said, as usual, my name is Victor, signing off. I'll catch you guys in my next video.